Welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast, a platform dedicated to honoring America's women veterans who dare greatly in all aspects of life. I'm your host, Sarah Scully. At Women in the Arena, we harness the power of storytelling to illuminate the human experience. Through authentic narratives, we honor the resilience, authenticity, and leadership of women who have served our country. Our name, Women in the Arena, pays homage to Theodore Roosevelt's legendary speech, The Man in the Arena, recognizing the remarkable contributions of women in traditionally male-dominated domains. Welcome back to another powerful episode of the Women in the Arena podcast. Today, we're joined by Rebecca Tubman, a trailblazer in cybersecurity, a United States Air Force veteran with 22 years of service, and a leader who continues to shape the future of national defense and data protection. Rebecca currently serves as a federal account executive at Varonis, where she helped build and now currently leads the counterintelligence community practice. Her mission, helping federal partners secure their most sensitive information with cutting-edge automated data security solutions, keeping them one step ahead of evolving threats. Before her mission to the private sector, Rebecca served with distinction across a wide range of missions in the Air Force, from missile warning and space operations to special operations and cyber warfare, including multiple overseas deployments. Rebecca and I were fortunate to connect through the impactful work of AllTrue, an organization forged in sacrifice and shaped by the experiences of women from the special operations community. AllTrue honors the legacy of our fallen teammates by daring to uphold the ideals they fought for and embracing the call to serve, whether in or out of the uniform. That shared spirit of purpose and service is what brought us together, and I couldn't be more honored to have her in the arena with us today. Let's dive in. Rebecca, welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast. We are so stoked that you are here. We've been chatting for quite some time about this. So excited that it's finally happening. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome.
I'm flattered that you have me.
Yeah, well, you're so deserving, and we're so excited to share your story, talk about some of the work that you're doing, and just dive right in. So let's start with the fun stuff. Tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up, anything like that, so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. I am a military brat. So in my immediate family with my mother, father, my brothers, and myself, we have over 120 years of military service. My parents are on the old side, so like my father's 86. And how that translates to military service is I had a great uncle who fought in the Indian Wars. My father knew somebody who was alive during the Civil War. And so we have a military heritage of doing kind of great things. So I grew up in that, and it was more like a Leave It to Beaver type family, completely normal. My mother I thought she was just little Miss Betty Crocker. And, she was all about etiquette, so nobody would guess that out of me. And she was in the Air Force, so she became an Air Force officer, and she was recruited for the space program, actually, to be the nutritionist. She remembers John Glenn in the chow hall at Wilford Hall in Texas. She also talks about as she was cruising in her car smoking cigarettes and how she used to smoke at her desk and start a trash can fire. And, traveling through the Pyrenees Mountains. And you would never know that Miss Betty Crocker did any of those things. And she was a pretty amazing woman. So that's kind of the environment I grew up. I grew up in Germany in the 80s. And, I remember seeing the Berlin Wall. Mike Weimer, he's the Sergeant Major of the Army. So grew up there. He's my brother's best friend. And they were always playing G.I. Joe. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I want nothing to do with the military. I am going to do my own crazy thing. And I sure did. I completely went off the rails and went completely wild. And
what age was this?
So I started everything pretty young.
Yeah.
So in Germany, there's no age for anything.
I'm laughing because we had a very similar kind of come to military service story of like, there's no way in hell I'm doing this. Kind of a wild child, like always wanting to do your own thing and then just somehow getting there. And then I also was laughing because whenever I describe my family, I always compare it to the Brady Bunch. So the TV show analysis, I also resonate with, and it paints a picture. But keep going.
Yeah, dinner on the table, going to church, like everything was just totally normal. And then I went off the rails. And so I was very young in high school. So I was 16 when I was a senior. And I was like, oh, I'm done with school. So I started going to college. So I had maybe Fs in high school, but my college grades were good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to University of Pittsburgh, and that went further off the rails. And my brothers, meanwhile, went to Virginia Military Institute in Norwich, and they were succeeding. And my parents didn't trust me to be home alone, so they brought me for Parents' Weekend. And when I saw what my brothers had with their friends, I was like, you know what? I want that camaraderie. They're part of something bigger than what I'm doing now, and I'm better than what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. So I had to hit rock bottom, hit it pretty hard. And then I went down to the recruiter, and I didn't tell my parents or anything, and I enlisted. And even at that time, though, I had gotten in trouble with the law, and I had to be wavered into the military. And that was all under 18, so it got us expunged eventually. Mm-hmm. My dad found out that I had enlisted, and then he came to the bus stop, and he said, give me your word that if anything happens, you'll come home. And I had set in my head that there's no way I'll ever come home. Like, I am never, ever coming home because I have just humiliated myself. And he grabbed my hand and he said, give me your word. And I said, okay, Papa, I'll come home. But that's it. I never came home.
And here we are.
Yeah. What a crazy rodeo it's been.
Yeah. I love your honesty, though, because I think that having kind of that not super linear path into service makes us so much better as service members, because we're able to really empathize and relate to people and be better leaders, because you're going to have soldiers or airmen or sailors who are also young and navigating the changes of life and making their own mistakes. And it makes it much easier to, I think, actually lead them and empathize with them and meet them where they're at. But tell us a little bit about your military career and what you did.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing is, so I had a good commander tell me that when you're a leader, you have in your power somebody's life. Mm-hmm. So when they do get in trouble, is it just a life lesson and they are going to bounce back? Or is this the person that needs to go a different path? And, I think that there are several airmen or soldiers that I was able to save and not crush them for the mistakes that they made, but rather they appreciated the chance that I gave them, and they ended up doing great things.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
So I enlisted, and I still had to hit one more bump because clearly I wasn't done. Yep. Sometimes it takes just a little bit more nudging. So I got an Article 15. That's how I started off my enlistment. Just wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. And then I also found myself, I eloped, and I was married within a year of being enlisted. Got married at the Garden of the Gods by a hippie. Every religion was involved. And then
that's so Colorado.
I know, right? The Garden of the Gods, like, I just like in this kind of like Jesus Christ robe comes out, and we're in his garden, and then we celebrated at Red Robin because we had no money.
Oh my gosh. I love Red Robin and Garden of the Gods, so I do love that story, but keep going.
Yeah. And then I had my first son a year later at the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
But I was a satellite operator, so I used to command and control and move all the geosynchronous satellites. And I think my first step at really recovering was from the Article 15 was only officers could fly the satellites. And I told my commander, I want to do that. I want to fly that satellite. I want to move it into different orbits and do those different types of things. And then as I needed more help, at that time, like for holidays, they give checks out to airmen who don't have any money. And so what I would do is we'd put the checks together and I would cook big meals and dinners, and all of us got together and had huge parties. But it was a really good time and a family time. And after that, I really took off. Started taking college courses again. Started getting awards in the unit, and then I went over to Spain and had my second child. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to be an officer, and I want to help all of those other airmen like me do better things. And so I put in my commissioning packet, and I'll never forget because they needed a PT test. So I had just had my daughter Marissa, and I had them release me from the hospital, and then I went and ran my PT test in the scorching Spanish sun in May. And I remember I crossed the finish line, and then I just kind of dropped. I almost passed out. But anyway, so I made it.
We've had so many stories of women who have had just given birth or they're about to give birth and they like still go out there and just crush this this life altering physical event or like this thing that they have to do for their career. And I just love it. I think I've already said it in another episode, like women are just going to get it done.
Yeah.
No matter the circumstances, no matter if they're postpartum, about to pop, dealing with whatever, they'll just find a way. So that's so awesome. So tell us about some impactful assignments that you had as an officer.
So I became an officer, and my first duty station was at the NSA, at the Meade Operations Center. And so I found myself as a brand new lieutenant, and I was in charge of 100 joint service people. And my first day on duty was to issue a letter of reprimand. And the Navy chief, he's like, come here, LT, let me show you how this is done. And he goes, I'll stand beside you. And I'm like, I don't know this person, this kid. And he goes, no, he deserves it. He later on had a rap sheet like you would not believe. It was really comical, what this kid had done. Anyway, we took care of him, and he's no longer in the service, probably in jail. So the Navy chief took me under his wings, and he helped me sort all those different problems out. But NSA was just really, really fascinating. I was in charge of 7 different stations. It was a interesting time. So that was, just after September 11th, and different things going on in the world. And then I later became deputy division chief for signals exploitation. So, that's just, that was also interesting.
Awesome. Tell us about a time during some of those assignments that kind of stands out to you as kind of a moment of really honing the leadership skills that you had built to that point, and something that just stood out as just a pivotal moment during some of those assignments.
So I would say, I was still young. I was still trying to find myself. I now found myself with 2 small kids. My husband had worked for the FBI, and then now he's a U.S. Marshal, and so trying to balance all those different things in shift work. But I really found what I was capable of doing, and I thought I was really good at it, was a deployment I did in 2005. And, with no instructions, no anything, just hop on this flight, land in this country, somebody will pick you up, and just go and do those things. I received, special instructions. This is what we're trying to do. Nobody told me how to do it, and I just figured it out and met a lot of really interesting people. Things from nobody taught me how to manifest on a helicopter. Nobody even knew who I was to even say, hey, come here, Lieutenant. It was just, I'm in civilian clothes and here I am just putting myself on a manifest to go out to some place. So in 2005, that was a pretty hoppin', scary time. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited to say I figured it out. It almost like taking Uber from different parts of the country. Nobody showed me how to use an Iridium or a Thria. Not that it's not very hard, but to just have it be handed to you and then you're going to another part of the country and, you haven't had SEER training or anything like that yet. So you're just figuring it out. It was pretty exciting. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was fun.
I think it's so funny how sometimes when we're in our most, I guess, like dynamic moments in our military career, we're just figuring it out on the fly. Like there's so much training invested in us, but I feel like most people have those stories of just being out in the middle of a desert or, manifesting on a helicopter and just thinking, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
How did I get
or
here?
Driving a Humvee. What Air Force girl hops and learns in a war zone how to drive a Humvee,
Exactly. Yep.
I remember I couldn't find toilet paper either, so I put 550 cord through my toilet paper roll.
There you go.
Yeah.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
When we chatted previously, you mentioned you had a really diverse career. You're an expert in nothing, but touch the magic in many things, and you describe yourself as an integrator. Can you expand on that and just kind of share with us what you mean by that?
Sure. So that particular deployment, I touched the magic. I saw how people were moving and doing things and conversations they were having, and that was all new to me. And I was grateful that they wanted me to be part of their team. They all wanted all the different teams that they had. And so after starting to see those different aspects, as I moved on in my career, I was able to integrate those different operational pieces. So there you have NSA, and then I went to DITRA. So that's all WMD type of stuff. And I saw even more programs there. And then from there, I went to JSOC. And so just working with the different folks down there and seeing how they assign very capable people to do certain tasks, and you can trust that they're going to do those tasks. Like, that everybody has a role and they're there at the seat for a reason, and just feeling very respected. And so you just start to learn, oh, they have that piece, or I can call this person, or I can do this and that. And you just, you don't burn any bridges, make a lot of friends, and then you can start to really integrate those pieces.
Yeah. I brought that up because it spoke to me, and I feel personally, so I've struggled with the feeling of having bounced around a lot in my career. And, I have friends who are pilots, doctors, engineers, whatever, and this is their thing, and they've specialized in it. They're the best at it. And I think it can make you, we're our own biggest critics, so we just put ourselves down sometimes. And I think it can make you feel like, oh, I don't have my thing, I don't have my title. But touching so many different things and bouncing around a lot in your career, especially in a military environment, working in different units, and just like you said, touching so many special places and meeting so many special people, it kind of gives you almost like a magic or secret weapon, if you will, of like, well, I know a little bit of everything, and I can integrate people and processes because I've touched so many different things. So I wanted to bring that up because I think there are probably a lot of people who maybe struggle with that feeling, especially people who are exiting the military and they're trying to figure out, okay, like how do I brand myself? Who am I? What do I bring to the table? And so, on that note, would love to talk about your transition out of active duty service and kind of what that looked like and how you used your title as integrator to continue to find, your next few chapters professionally.
Yeah. So it's been a hard transition because I'm all about the people. I'm all about the mission, and it just really was very exciting to do those operations and serve with those people. Like I truly passionately love them, and I still had so much more to give. And I had been away from my family for 6 years, and I was not gonna. The next assignment, we would still be separated again, and it's a really long time. You know, with 4 kids to try and keep it together. And I look back and I'm like, well, I don't feel like I did anything. But I did, and I look back at some of the other activities. So I bring up, I know I'm jumping around, like all true. So my friend, she reminds me that you did it more than you think, and you did more than most. And she still has to remind me that that is the case. But I did, publicly available information, information warfare, HUMINT, SIGINT, WMD type stuff, satellite stuff. So I do understand that multi-domain piece. I am good at being an integrator. I'm not the engineer. Maybe it's an understanding of I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And I'll simply say I don't know what the answer is. You know, I'm not the public keynote speaker, but I'm someone you'll want on your team. If that, I don't know if that's helpful.
No, it's totally helpful. And I just want to again touch on what you said about that feeling of like, I feel like I didn't do enough. And one thing I love about the Military Women's Memorial is that they highlight women service members who have served in all different capacities. So you'd think going to a museum that you're going to see the general officers and
Yeah.
the sergeants major and all that stuff. And, they show stories of women who served for 18 months, but they did something really special and they contributed something meaningful, and they, encourage people to share their stories and to document their military service. And I think it just goes to show that, you don't have to have a 30-year career. You don't have to be in the highest level of leadership to make an impact. And sometimes it's hard to, not focus in on the things that we did not do and not, focus on the things that we did. But I think that's something that many of us struggle with. So what did post-military life look like?
Oh, so I was working on a publicly available information project when I was active duty, and I dropped my retirement paperwork, and this company called me and said, hey, I think you'd be great to be this Air Force rep. And I said, okay, that's it. This is the next part. I have a job. It's fine. And I started working for this company, and hands down, they are the best at PAI type of stuff. They'd take someone who had been in the service for a couple months and be able to push out a full target package. And it was just amazing to watch how they did the voodoo that they do. So I helped do business development and build multi-domain operational training course, essentially. And then I also built a next generation personal recovery program for them. And then my mother got sick, so then I dropped part-time, and then I started my own consultancy and took care of my mom. I stopped with that company, and then I just did consulting on the side. And my mom passed away, and then I joined this other company that I'm with now. And I think finding that great success in the new company I'm a part of, you start to rebuild that sense I'm still doing and working things with the customers I used to be a part of, and we have good purpose. I think it's all about purpose, and then All True. So I found All True, and I'm working on some amazing projects with them. Leading and encouraging the next generation of leaders from high school to universities, and then also women, peace, and security. So we have schools in Afghanistan. We've donated stuff to Tunisia, and then I'm working a project with Kenya, with a school there for girls. This particular woman has saved over 2,000 girls from child marriages and mutilation and so forth. And we're going to provide some technical devices and communication and help them complete an app that some of the girls had started. So I'm excited about doing those grassroots efforts.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we love All True here. I don't know if we've actually given All True a shout out yet on an episode, so it's pretty exciting to be doing that. But they work hand in hand with Sisters of Service, which I've been intimately involved with for many years and I love. But tell us kind of broad level what All True's mission is for those who aren't familiar.
So All True was started out of the cultural support teams out of Afghanistan, and they helped save the FTPs from Afghanistan, and we engage, gather, and connect youth around the world, but also here in the United States to empower the next generation to lead courageously.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And then the effort that you're so closely involved with Women, Peace, and Security, tell us how you would define women, peace, and security, because I think that's kind of a phrase that a lot of people hear about, but some people don't really know, tangibly what that is and what it affects.
So they found that when women participate in the peace process and within government, within organizations, within a nation state, they are a more stable, lasting society. And so when you look across the world where women may not have voices or rights and they don't participate within government, it's not quite a stable society. And so women, peace, and security for me is to help some of those grassroots efforts, like the school, Dr. Kalia, who was also recognized by President Obama for her good work, empowering leaders like that in Africa. And she's already involved. So you use her own network, you use her voice, and you like we're doing right now, you're sharing their voice to society, to other women, so that they can take part in society more, in government and so forth.
We were talking the other day, just kind of informally, as a group about how women have always connected and gathered, and they will just continue to do that. And I just love with things like All True or Sisters of Service or what we're doing here, how we build these global networks of women that are just changing the world. It's just so crazy. And it's amazing to see like what we can do when we come together with a purpose and, doing things on the ground in other countries just by the power of connecting is just so cool.
So what's exciting too is All True is not just for women. So I have to, I want to be super clear because when we do engage events, it's really important to have the male role models and they're always on stage. And because it really is empowering the youth, like let them know what they're capable of doing. So that they're not finding out like my late age, what you're capable of doing. When you start them young, they can start to change the world now instead of many years later. And it takes male role models to do that as well. So, it's really important, especially around the world. You can't change some of how those perceptions in other countries without having the male role models be there by their side to do it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We talk about that a lot here and in some other non-for-profit spaces that I'm involved with that are maybe led for women or have programming that is directly impacting women, the importance of not making this just for women, led by women, like bringing men into the fold, even if it's an organization whose programming is empowering, supporting women, is important because we're all in this together and we need representation on all fronts for the changes that we're trying to make.
And I'm smiling because my husband, he gave me the most crap. Well, he didn't really say anything and he wasn't a believer. And, I talked more and more about it and what we're doing and how we're coming together and the caliber of women that, that are a part of the organization. And then I brought home an All True t-shirt. And he comes down into his bourbon room and he sits down. I look over and he's wearing his All True shirt. And I'm like, oh, look who's a believer. He's like, yeah. He goes, when do I get to come to the next event? And I'm like, yes.
That's awesome. We love when our men wear our merch.
Yeah.
My boyfriend wears his Women in the Arena hat a lot to work, and I'm always very proud. I want to talk a little bit, too, about your current company and just kind of their mission and, how you're involved with them, too. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'd like to say I got lucky. A friend had me look at the capability. He's like, oh, I want to show you this platform. So he showed me the platform, and I had just come out of Cyber Command, and I sat on an offensive cyber team. And so the platform, as I looked at it with my non-technical hat on, it goes at speed and scale through an enclave, and will tell you what vulnerabilities you have in the network. So basically, everything you need to close, like broken ACLs and permissions and stuff like that. And so I'm the rep for the Intel community and special operations. And I saw that capability. I said, you know what, I think that my friends and the people in government, I think they need this. It's not the 100% solution, but it gets rid of, I immediately thought of SolarWinds and Snowden and insider threat. And I'm like, well, if we can just stop the next, that next threat or catch the next threat, then we've helped the community. So I'm really happy that they hired me.
Yeah.
And I work with them, and I still work with the customers I work with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you're doing amazing things. What have you learned about government partnerships in your current role? Because I know we have a lot of listeners and guests who have transitioned into a similar space of working for a company and kind of doing more of a partnership on the government side of things. And it's it can be a very challenging role to have. And a lot of kind of considerations that make it different. So what's been your biggest learning lesson being in that capacity?
I guess learning the language. So, and understanding if you have a small company that's not publicly traded on the stock market, that's a huge difference. Understanding the different quarters and how you report to Wall Street, and you have integrators, just learning the lingo, like an integrator would be like CACI or Parsons or Lockheed Martin. And then you have VARs, value-added resellers. They're the in-between person that sells the technology to the government or to the integrator. And oftentimes people haven't had the government experience that I've had and don't quite understand the mission of what that government organization is trying to solve. And so they rely on the integrator and the value-added reseller in order to sell their widget, whatever the widget may be. Mm-hmm. So they go through all these different people, and then understanding how everybody gets a cut and how the contracting vehicles work and the sales cycle and all of that stuff was a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
the compensation plan, I'm like, it reminded me of, like kids on a playground, and they're like, oh, if you do this, then you get this. But then if you do this, this, and this, then you get that and this, but not this. It was like the weirdest, most complex compensation plan. And I just told my boss, I'm like, I don't even care. I haven't even sold anything yet. I'll worry about it when I sell something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, working through that. And as much as you Google what the heck they're talking about, it's still the Google doesn't help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely its own kind of complicated dynamic space. How do you justify or explain, like you're saying before, like when you're working with someone who maybe doesn't understand the organization that you're working with, partnering with, selling to, like what have been some good strategies for you to kind of explain the landscape of that side of things to someone who doesn't understand?
I just try and be explicit and just like the blunt truth to both the customer and to my boss. I will say this is just not going to work. This is why it won't work. We're slowly changing how our federal business does business now with the government, understanding the support that they need. So we're adding more support, and we're just slowly changing the business because of what the customer has said.
Yeah, gotcha.
And this is so random, but I do want to share it because it's one of my fondest memories.
Go for it.
So, as a woman in special ops, you're like, I have to do everything that they do. Mm-hmm. So I'm like huge pregnant, and I'm wearing my PT gear, which is just black and tans, and I'd run around the flight line. So even the guards there were like, "You were the pregnant girl who used to," and so my guys would always wonder, like, where is she? Is she in labor again around the flight line? We got to go find her.
Yeah.
And then they would ask me, "Did you pack a bag? Did you pack a bag?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't pack a bag." And I came into my office one day, and they had packed a baby bag for me.
Oh.
With the whole moo outfit. It was horrible. It was this pink thing, but a baby outfit, diapers, and everything. And they were like standing at the door, and they go, "Your bag's packed now."
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love when you got a team of dudes and they just like rally around.
Yeah.
It's like that maybe they don't quite understand, but they're supporters. That's awesome. And then, last question about just kind of currently where you're at, like with the industry that you're working in, what would you want I don't want to say average American, but just, the American people to know kind of about the threat landscape that you're seeing day to day at work?
I mean, cyber attacks. If you were to load a firewall on your personal, your home network and stuff, you would see that the adversary, Chinese, Russia, everyone is hitting our networks all the time looking for the vulnerabilities. Like from, hospitals to whatever it may be, they're constantly hitting us. And so as a country, we have to come up with a really good defense, whether it's information warfare, through apps and stuff like that, just changing the narrative from a very young age of our youth and changing how they think. And, it's a real threat.
Yeah. And I think that the question that I hear, maybe the comments of, especially, I sound so old, but the younger generation is,
Oh, I'm so old.
Well, why should I care? Like, why should I care if my data is compromised? I'm just Sarah Scully, or, I'm just this person. Why does it matter that, my data is compromised, or how does this threat affect me? And what would you say to someone if they said that?
So I had to go through this battle with my kids.
Perfect.
Yeah. Just like, all the posting and social media and, how kids have this anxiety now because of all the social media. And it's true. It's like, I don't look good enough. I don't, I just had to really coach my kids, like be very careful. And they're like, well, they're not after you. They're not after us. I'm like, you never know. I always said, if you want to target something, are you going to go after the president, or are you going to go after the janitor, which is probably the weakest link to get to the president? And I'd say the weakest link would be our children to get to the people that are. So I just coach and talk to my family. We're very open about everything.
Yeah, that's a really good answer and a good point. Speaking of kids, you have 4?
Yes.
Okay, what are their ages?
28, 25, 17, and 13.
Wow.
And my husband and I will have been, well, whatever, in September, 30 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So he has a joke that I would convince him to get me pregnant, and then I'd say, peace out.
And go do a job. Or
Yes, and go do a job, yeah. And so our family is so crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy.
The way that you describe your family and I describe my family is the same. And it's so funny between the TV show and then when people ask me about growing up, I always just say, oh, it was madness. But it's great. It's a beautiful madness.
It is.
I have almost the same age difference too with your oldest and youngest with my sister too.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it's always funny. I just joke. I'm like, man, my parents will just never get a break. I mean, when are they going to be able to just go on cruises and, be, I guess, empty nesters? But yeah, you really stretch out the lifespan of parenting.
Oh, yeah. And I guess it keeps you young,
Yeah, absolutely. What do you love most about motherhood?
I was just thinking about this the other day. I hope this isn't too morbid, but so in my son's high school, they've had three deaths in his senior class. And in fact, a young boy just died yesterday. And I just, want to reach out to them and tell them, this will get me emotional. I am so happy that you made me a mother. Mm-hmm. That I love them so much that they gave me courage through my career. And when I'd come home and they'd run out to the car, I knew that everything was still okay. Mm-hmm. The fact that they still come home, they still call me every day. My daughter just called. She's graduating from Bolick tomorrow. So
my gosh. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you had a daughter who was in the military.
Yep. So she was in the sales. We worked for the same company. And then she was talking about it. Obviously she knows great women. Mm-hmm. And she wants to do great things like they have done. And she went and signed up.
And what bullet class is she graduating from?
Ordnance.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And she made the commandant's list.
Oh my gosh,
I know. I
hope she hears us.
I know.
How exciting. And
I'm so happy,
yeah. And so rewarding for you to be able to kind of like live vicariously through her and see that through. That's so awesome. I love that.
And then my son, the 28-year-old, is going to graduate Marine officer training in March 22nd.
Okay, nice. So you got two children starting their careers as officers recently. Yeah. That's really exciting stuff.
I know. They're so good.
Oh, I love that. What advice would you give, just kind of looking back, because we touched on so many things, from different chapters in your life, childhood, military, post-military, motherhood. What advice would you give to someone listening right now who is facing kind of a fork in the road of their life, of figuring out what they want to do next, who they want to be, kind of tapping into what we talked about before, like how to brand yourself, how to take all of this, accumulation of experiences and say, like, this is who I am, this is what I bring to the table. What advice would you give to someone who's in one of those positions right now?
So I would find a good mentor and a coach and have them look at you and see the things that you can't see at the moment. Mm-hmm. Like when you're in those thoughts and in your head, like, I didn't do anything, there's more I could have done, and you can't see what you actually did. Have somebody else look at you and say, man, look at what you did. This is what you've done. This is the value you add. And like your whole life, you're going to be figuring out who you are and what you want to do next. My 19 satellite year old self who just eloped had no idea what was out there in the world, by the time I retired. I had no idea that there was anything else I was going to do or be, or that I'd have 4 kids. So I would, get out of your head. It's okay that you don't know what you're going to do. You're going to be just fine. There's organizations like All True. They'll help you find your way and empower you and give you the courage and voice again. And then find a good mentor and coach that you trust and can tell you those things.
I love that. Yeah, coaching is so important. And I'm going to shamelessly plug that we have a slate of mentors here who have been guests. And I've been trying to
Yes.
kind of amplify that a little bit more, that we have, all these amazing women who come in here through the Women in the Arena podcast and the Iron Butterfly podcast, who have been in the shoes of, so many people facing change and transition. And we have people that you can tap into as well. So yeah, very, very important. I have a really hard question for you. I think it's always the hardest one that we ask, and it's the closing one.
Oh,
If you had to pick your own women in the arena, so a woman who has inspired you, who has always encouraged you to be your authentic self, and it could be somebody close to you, a relative or a friend, or it could be somebody like Oprah Winfrey, who maybe you'll never meet, but you're like, God, I always looked up to that woman. Who would be your woman in the arena?
I know it sounds kind of cliche. There's two people that immediately came to mind. My mother, because you'd never think that Miss Betty Crocker would do the stuff that she did. And she was so humble. And I just remember she used to grab my face and be like, my crazy, crazy daughter. And then she would just send me on my way. And no matter the bad stuff or how crazy I was being, she just still loved me. I really looked up to her for the calmness. She had purpose, and man, was she loved, to be loved that way. And then my other best friend, I always say it was one night in Baghdad, sitting in a talk, and she was eating her snacks and I was eating my snacks, and it was of course chocolate and nuts. And I looked at her, and it was just a blossoming friendship that we've kept to this day. And she just empowers me, sets me straight, and she continues to just conquer the world right now. Yeah, she's still going up and doing really great things. And I think she's a role model for a lot of people in all true and women in the arena, actually.
What's her name?
Amanda Wilson.
Oh, perfect. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Amanda, if you're listening, we love you.
Yeah, we love you, Amanda. One night in Baghdad.
It's so funny. I'm laughing because my one of my best friends too, we were in Afghanistan together, and I swear to God, it's like once you're in a difficult situation with a fellow female friend and you just see like the craziest things together in the craziest situations, we'll be, in a bar drinking, just chilling, and we're look at each other like, do you remember that time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one night in Baghdad, do you remember when we did this? How did we get to where we are now? But I'll tell you what, they are the ride or dies because they've seen every single side of you, and they will just continue to love you very authentically.
Yep.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. I also forgot to shout out, thanks for coming down here because you traveled for this. So thank you so much for coming down and being a part of it. We're so excited to see what you continue to do with your current job, and then also really excited to see All True just continue to take off. I think I don't think I know that All True is a nonprofit that's really kind of changing the game, and it's not just another veteran-led organization doing the same thing as lots of others. I think it's one that really has a dynamic mission that's quite literally changing the world. And so really excited to see that continue to evolve and continue to see all the amazing projects that you're working on. So cool. You'll have to keep us updated. And as a thank you to you, we just have a little gift for you. We give these to our guests. It's our Women in the Arena bracelets. And there's a quote on there just to remind you that you are a person that's just making an incredible impact in this world. And whenever you're in the arena of life, whether it's in your current job, dealing with the dynamic spaces that we talked about, or, changing the world in Africa, or raising 4 kids, you always have a network of women here who are cheering you on, and we believe in you. So thank you for everything you have done and for everything we know that you'll continue to do.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yeah.
This was exciting.
The Women in the Arena podcast is powered by Iron Butterfly Media, a production company committed to honoring the lives of women who have had an unseen and outsized impact on our world. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have a woman who you would like to nominate as a guest, please shoot us a message on our social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe and follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.